Hi everyone, I hope you're doing well. My name's Katie and I make book-related videos every single Wednesday, and today I'm going to be doing a quick spoiler-free review of The Child Finder by Renee Denfeld. And if Renee Denfeld sounds familiar, that's because she wrote one of my favorite books of all time, The Enchanted. I think that was my favorite book of 2015, if I'm remembering correctly. But this video is gonna be pretty quick because one, my battery is dying, but two, I just want to briefly tell you what this is about with no spoilers and a flavor of why I think you should read this, because this has easily become, and I ate this up, I read it so quickly, this has easily become just one of my favorite books of all time. And before I get into a brief summary of what this is about, I did just want to throw out a couple of trigger warnings out there. This book does deal with different kinds of abuse, including sexual abuse, and although most of it is not explicit, it definitely is in there, so I just wanted to throw that out there for any of you who might need to know that before checking this out. I just tried to fix the lighting a little bit, so let me know if that helped whatsoever. But before I get into briefly what this is about, you can tell just by the cover before I say anything that there's going to be some type of death in this book, or it's gonna be a horror, or it's gonna be a thriller. Why do we know that? If you've been watching my channel for any length of time, you know that's because there are branches on the cover. For a very high level summary, this book is told from multiple points of view, but it's mainly told from the points of view of two people, Naomi and then the snow child, or Madison. This takes place way up north in Oregon in a snow-covered, very small, very secluded town. And Naomi is in her late 20s and her job is to find missing children. And she's found so many, in fact, that she's become known as the Child Finder. And for a little bit on her history, she was once a stolen or kidnapped child as well, although she has no memory of her kidnapping. And she has come to this tiny town, which is near where she was actually raised, because a young girl went missing 3 years prior. Her name's Madison. And what I'm about to say is not a spoiler by any means, because you find this out super early on in the book. But the other point of view is the missing girl, Madison. Her point of view is very difficult to read because it takes place with her and her kidnapper, Mr. B, and she refers to herself as the snow child, which is one of Madison's personal favorite fairy tales, because this is sort of a coping mechanism for her to try and make sense of why she is where she is. So first, starting off with the prose, I just absolutely adore her writing style. I know that when you hear the summary of this, when you look at the cover, you think, okay, so this is a thriller, this is a horror novel, this is a crime novel, but categorizing it as any of those doesn't feel right to me, because this really feels like, to me, if I was going to categorize it as anything, it would be literary fiction with really dark subject matter. And I say that because her writing style is so poetic and so beautiful. And I did see that if there were, because I always read reviews on Goodreads, and I saw that if there were negative reviews, I saw a handful and they all were around her writing style. I think what it comes down to, and I don't think anyone's right or wrong in the situation, but you're either gonna find it very lyrical, very poetic, very beautiful like I do, or you're gonna think it's a little bit cliched and maybe a little bit sappy. So you're just gonna fall on one side of the fence. I just think you're gonna come away feeling one way or the other and likely nowhere in the middle. It's also just rare that I get this emotional and this invested in characters, particularly considering that this book is only a little over 200 pages. I think it's around 260, 270. And even though there isn't a ton of exposition, which is a good thing, you don't learn a huge amount about the characters, but you feel like you get to know them so well, again, just because her writing style is so wonderful. And I will say, and I'm saying this in the pro section, but you could view this as a pro or a con, but this is a very heavy book, which I'm sure you could guess by just the high level summary I gave, but this is gonna make you feel weighed down in some senses. So this is not the book to pick up if you need a pick-me-up. Just keep that in mind going into this. And one of my favorite aspects of reading Renee Denfeld's books is that she's actually a licensed investigator in Oregon. So she's very familiar with the subject matter of what she writes. And I think because of that, you can tell that she's writing about this really difficult subject matter with a lot of care and a lot of respect. Sometimes you read books with this type of subject matter and it can start to really feel like torture porn, but this book book, although it's very difficult to read, it never felt like that, at least to me. Well, if this next clip looks a little bit thrown in, that's because I'm filming it sometime later because I read something online I also wanted to throw in. And that's the fact, and I should say first, Renee Denfeld is very open about this. I read this in an interview online, but she herself was a victim of child abuse. And in the book, Naomi was a foster child, and she talks a lot about being a foster child and growing up in that type of home. And Renee Denfeld herself has 3 foster children. So again, just adding to that fact that she talks about the subject matter with such care and with such respect. For cons, I have absolutely 0, which is very rare for me if you watch my channel at all. The only thing I will say, and this isn't a con, but it's just something to be aware of, is I know that when you, again, look at the cover, read the blurb of this, you might pick it up thinking this is going to be a fast-paced thriller or it's going to be a mystery novel in the classic sense. This is not the type of book where you get to the ending and there's a huge twist and you're trying to figure out things as you go through. The events in the book and who's who is revealed fairly early on. I'm not going to say in this video, but you learn and can kind of figure out who's who about halfway through the book, I would say. And if you like a typical thriller or mystery novel where during the last 10 pages there's a massive twist and you're shocked and blown away, that's not going to be in this book. And again, I don't think that's a bad thing because you don't read Renee Denfeld's books for twists or for shock value. You read them because of her writing style and because it's teaching you about really difficult subject matter that, again, she is an expert in. So I can safely say now that Renee Denfeld, hopefully I'm pronouncing her last name correctly, I think so. I can safely say now that I've read 2 of her books that she is easily one of my top favorite authors, definitely up there with Gillian Flynn, although their writing styles are completely different. But please, if you haven't, definitely check out The Child Finder. Again, the plot line is in no way related to The Enchanted, and I actually think that if you were going to pick out one of her books first, I think I would actually go with probably The Child Finder and then read The Enchanted. Not because I think The Child Finder is necessarily better. I really liked both books, but I could maybe just see like the average person picking this up and possibly enjoying this one a little bit more. So again, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please go check out at least one of her books as soon as you can, and I would be really curious if you guys have read this or The Enchanted, what you think about it. Again, as always, please let me know which thriller or horror novels you recommend or that you're reading right now down below, and I'll see you guys next Wednesday. Bye.